FX Nation, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And as we continue our series here of how a weekly cycle starts to develop, we've now had another day of data that we've collected. All right, so let's take a look at the two pairs that we are going to follow the entire week so we can start to think about what we think is going to happen according to what data we have from the actual charts. All right, so let's go ahead and literally start off with this euro pound. Now, when I was talking yesterday, right, I was expecting euro pound to be in a trending cycle or basically go higher, and what I really wanted it to do was essentially go and touch the 50 here and then go up and go higher. It did go higher, it just didn't go to the actual 50. This didn't give us really an actual setup to trade here. Essentially, it was basically a straightaway trade, right? So if you don't know what a straightaway trade, go check out the Trading with Market Makers playlist. You'll have the straightaway trade there all broken down for you. But essentially, what did we end up getting here is a straightaway trade going straight up in one direction. Now, this does actually give us better data, though, as we go into Wednesday, right? So let's go ahead and talk about that, because we've had a full day of rise on Tuesday, pretty much, both London and US session. Yes, we had a retracement. That's perfectly fine. So now, what does that leave us with as far as a possible trade setup that we can possibly look for London or even US session? So when I take a look at this and I look at 2 days of rise, and then I see this sharp pullback here, okay, and I start to see this movement here sideways going into the Asian session right now. What I want to see is whether or not essentially how big is this Asian range going to be by the time the London session opens. Okay, the reason I say that is because we could get a possibility where this is actually Wednesday, and so we could get a possibility where we go up like this and basically almost tag this high of Tuesday, and then we drop. Okay, and if that does happen, that would put us basically into getting a midweek reversal. Okay, that would get us into a midweek reversal, and you would have a market maker cycle. All right, so the only other possibility that I see this happening is if this is a trending cycle. This right here would be obviously your higher high, and then you would basically want a higher low again to be created and then rise again. So this is really going to depend on what does this look like at the beginning of the London session. How did this Asian range play out? Did it literally stay this tiny? Because if it stayed that tiny, if it stays under 15 pips of this range here, you really want any kind of a type 1 setup to actually happen here. Okay, whether it's a type 1 to sell or whether it's a type 1 to continue the trend. All right, based on this move, you had literally a full day of movement here. And like I said, I think it just really depends on what happens throughout the Asian range, because it could actually go either way. It just depends on what happens. It really does. And that's the thought process that I have every single time that I go into looking at charts. People ask me, what do you think it's going to do? I always tell you, I don't know. Let me look at the charts literally at 2 o'clock once the Asian range has been planned out basically, and I can get you a better answer to the question, right? But we don't know how this Asian range is going to play out. Okay, so the two behaviors that you look for is whether or not this basically goes back up and tags the high and does a midweek reversal, or if this goes back down and does like a type 1 and let's say maybe tags the peak the previous week's high, which is this line here, okay, and that would essentially be like a type 1 and then go up. All right, so it just, again, it really just depends on what happens from the Asian range. That's going to show us a lot about what I think is going to happen. All right, but that's what I think on Euro Pound. If we take a look at Pound USD obviously did pretty opposite of what Euro Pound did. Right now, we did have a trade set up here during the U.S. session, and so the trade setup is on this particular trade, or on this pair, was I took a continuation trade going down just because I saw the behavior happening here. So the continuation trade was pretty simple. You had a pullback from 7 to 8, and then right at the beginning of the session, you saw this pin to the 50 here, to the 50 EMA. So that took that as a sell, basically. Now, the entry was after this candle, and I waited for the pullback to actually get into the trade. So the candle closed just to confirm that it's closing below the 13, but then I wait for the pullback, and that's when I got into the trade, is on the actual pullback. 15 pip stop loss right above the 50 EMA. That way, if I'm wrong, I'm literally going to be wrong in the next candle or so, and I don't have to hold this very long. But the trade itself was a 30 pip trade. Got out of the trade pretty fast within 3 candles, and I was done. Okay. Now, very interesting that we did have a pullback all the way up here. All right. So what does this basically give us? All right. Now this is a little bit different because we didn't have a move down in one direction the whole day. We didn't have this with Pound USD. All right, so that leads us to, this leads me to basically saying that this could be a different, potentially a different cycle than Euro Pound. All right, because of the behavior wasn't exactly the same. All right, so the fact that we ended up getting sideways movement here, okay, leads me to believe that we could have more of a trending cycle than anything else. So what do I look for on Pound USD? So again, it depends on what happens. How big is this Asian range going to be? How big is this Asian range going to be? Okay, and also where, after the Asian range is over, where are these EMAs? Right here, the 800 and the 50. That's going to play a huge part. Okay, and so this is where knowing that each individual pair at any time could be different, no matter if they typically follow the opposite of what each other does. So typically when you see Euro Pound do one thing, Pound USD does the complete opposite, right? Typically is what happens. But there's going to be times, because of the two different currencies that Pound USD has, that's different than Euro Pound, you're going to have this, where they don't exactly mirror each other, and that's perfectly fine. And this is where you have to learn to kind of separate the pairs. It's just like when you see a movement, all the pound pairs do the same move on one day, right? And all of a sudden you think you got to trade all the pound pairs. Well, you don't have to trade all the pound pairs. You just have to trade the best one. And then know that just because all the pound pairs do the same movement, it doesn't mean that they're going to move the exact same distance. So let's say 100 pip move on Pound USD and on Pound JPY doesn't mean that Pound CAD is going to do a 100 pip move also. It may only do 30 or 40 pip move, while Pound AUD and Pound NZD may do a 150 pip move. Every one of these pairs will do a different move, even though the movement in general is the same. The pip value on each of these pairs is different, so that's where the different variation comes in. Okay, but when we get back to this here and we start to look back, all right, let's start to look back here and let's start to realize, okay, what could potentially happen here? All right, so if there's two different situations that could happen actually, because what I've seen before happen is a move where you have basically 2 days of drop and then you basically continue on this way and continue up. Okay, the thing that gives me that belief of what's happening right now with that pound USD is the movement of how sharp it came all the way back up. It came all the way back up to the 200. Why do that? Why come back all the way up to the 200? And actually now we're trading above the 200, right? If you're going to make a move back up, why not make it to the 50 or even to the 800 here? You know what I mean? Why do that? Why go all the way above? Okay, so this again depends on how we look after the Asian range is over, because you could have a possibility where if price is trending or moving across like this, and you literally have the 800, the 50, and the 200 here, what are the probability that price is going to go straight through that versus giving you maybe a type 2 setup here and going straight up and rising? You know what I mean? You see what I mean? So that you have to take into account, okay, of possibilities. And so the other possibility is, what would happen if basically this Asian range goes down like this and now it's actually trading down here? Okay, and so the box here is basically like this. And now you have literally the 800, the 50, and the 200. You see what I mean? So the EMAs are going to play a huge part as far as helping you decide which direction this might go in. Okay? So those are the things that I think about when I'm looking at these pairs. And every day, as I get more data, it helps me. And it should help you also. The only difference is that in order to get good at this, you need to do some back testing to understand how that particular pair moves. So if you have one of your favorite pairs is pound AUD, how far back have you gone to back test that pair? You know, ask yourself, be honest with yourself, how far back have you gone to back test that pair to know the behaviors of that pair? All right. So those are my thoughts on Euro Pound and Pound USD today, and this depends on what happens after the Asian box. All right, that's going to give you huge clues as to what you should be looking for. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video today, and I hope you're enjoying this series that we're having this week. If you need any more help, again, we have a new class starting in August. All the links are in the description. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.